And so then this coming Sunday, you're going to talk about private disciplines. So I know that, the last three, you can talk a lot about that because you already did those messages. So give us a little bit of a preview maybe for this coming Sunday. What are, those disciplines? Why do we need them in our life? That kind of stuff.
Right. So whether you hear this before or after the message, and whether you even get to hear that message, the whole idea, no one likes discipline either. That
No.
word discipline, because I'll give you a really good instance of this. Remember the other day, the staff, they did a great thing for me on Monday. We were supposed to have staff meeting. I show up and they've got all these donuts and all this incredible stuff there. And then I have a little bit of a blood sugar issue, so I really should not be eating donuts. So they bought me this little container of sugar-free cupcakes.
Yeah.
And
they're good.
They were good, but there were these donuts, huge donuts. I'm not talking about just
Yeah.
And I literally, it was like, I'm salivating over these donuts, thinking I just want one.
Right.
But I had to be disciplined to not, because if I had eaten that just one, probably just a few bites of one of those, I would have been in a coma. and I don't mean that literally, but I mean, it would have just put me in a funk the rest of the day. I would have crashed. I wouldn't have felt good. I wouldn't have had clear thoughts, and I needed them on that day. That was a full day for me. And so it was like, I want that. But, I knew I had to be disciplined for the good that it was going to bring me.
Yeah.
And actually, the donuts or the cupcakes, they were really
good.
Yeah,
actually.
they were really pretty good.
good.
And so, matter of fact, there's some still left over, and one of those are in my future today. I can tell you.
That's
great. But that's when you think of disciplines, you think the worst. But actually, if you think of disciplines as what they actually bring, they are so worth it.
Yeah.
And we talk about the private ones. Private disciplines are the things that you do. And the crazy thing you hear at church a lot is that God wants to be intimate with you. He wants to be close to you. Even like the David Crowder song, he wants to embrace you with a wet, sloppy kiss. And I'm like, first of all, that doesn't sound appealing to me at all.
Right.
A wet, sloppy kiss.
Kind of weird and definitely crazy.
I have grandkids. I get a lot of those wet, sloppy kisses,
I know what you mean.
I love that.
Yeah.
But come on, when you think of God, you're not thinking of him that way.
No.
And so, it does. I get the imagery and I get all of that, but really the point is that God is not far away, and you can be close to God and you can experience his presence, but it takes discipline on our part to make that happen. And it happens usually right inside us. It's the things we take the time to do and we discipline ourselves to accomplish. And when we do, that's when we start to have this intimate and close relationship with Jesus himself. And it's powerful.
Absolutely
when
powerful.
You have that.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I know that it's called a discipline for a reason. Sometimes it's hard. And in fact, typically it is hard. If it was easy to do, I don't know that you would call it a discipline, right?
Right.
So it's just, it's one of those things though, you choose that on purpose because you know that it is good for you. You know that it is going to make you better, but it's not necessarily fun to have to go through the disciplining part. Yeah. I think of just something you say all the time is that leaders are readers. And I think about that for me. Just reading in and of itself is a discipline for me because I just, I never was particularly good at it and I always struggle with it. And even just the retention, it's like I read the same sentence over and over again. And I'm like, what was that? I feel like I just got to go back and start it again. And so it's always been a challenge. If reading came easily to me like it does to my son, who at 9 years old has read more books in one summer than I've probably read in my whole life. But it's crazy. He just sits down and chews up a book and it's gone. And he reads so quick, and I'm glad that he does. I'm glad that he doesn't deal with it the way that I did, but it's a discipline to say, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read this. And then if I have to reread the same paragraph over and over again in order to get it, I'm going to do it because it's important and it's valuable that I do that. And I am better for it. Every single time I read a book and I'm like, man, that was really, really good. Or I just learned so much from it. But if I was discouraged after the first 3 pages. If I had just stopped there, I would have missed out on all of that.
Yeah.
So
I think that one of the things that we think of is always we go to the negative because of the concept of disciplines.
Yeah.
And we always think of discipline as being hurt, or, like as a child,
Right,
you're
yeah.
disciplined, you're grounded, or, oh my goodness, should I say the word spanked?
Oh,
But,
no.
Whatever. I mean, that's what happened to me. I was spanked, when I was a kid. I knew when that happened, that was not fun. I didn't enjoy it.
Right.
But I did learn a lesson, and I didn't do it again. And I will tell you that one of the things that discipline does for you is not necessarily punish you. We confuse those two words, discipline and punishment. So it's not private punishments.
No, right. Yes.
I'm actually going to talk about that. Saying this is not
Good.
a punishment. And so it's crazy to think that I would want to sit down and do this and try to have a close relationship with someone I don't see or haven't had an audible conversation. I haven't heard him speak to me. I haven't heard those things. Even though I will tell you that the more I get into reading, and read the Bible, or I read especially the stories and the teaching Jesus did, I feel very close to him because I hear his heart. I hear what he's trying to convey, and it gets me ready for things that I need in my life. And it really, the discipline is awesome. It's like you don't decide, I'm going to run in the Air Force marathon,
Right.
And then
just show up that day.
And then just show up that day without ever running. You just don't do that.
No.
And so you would have to prep yourself. You'd hope that you'd had at least tried to run 26.2 miles at least a couple
Some other time, yeah.
before you go in to try to do it in a competition.
Yeah, I would advise that. Probably a good idea.
Yeah,
This is why I don't do them.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it and think to myself, that's what a discipline is for. It's not a punishment. It is developing something that will be of great benefit to you.
Yeah.
And it will take you to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And so the more you discipline yourself to do it. I'm only going to be talking about 3 specific disciplines, and then I'm going to ask people to try it for 30 days with me. We're going to do an experiment.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a dare in a way.
Right,
kind of a double dog, triple dog dare kind of feel.
Nice.
But I just, test it and see what happens. See if you don't see a change in your life as a result of spending time with God and what else, the other ones that I'm going to talk about. I just think it's going to be amazing, and just see what happens in that 30 days in an individual's life. But imagine what the effect could be on a group of people if everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what it could do to the church.
Absolutely. So just like jogging around the block every day could get you ready for a marathon. These disciplines, if you take the challenge, are going to set you up, prepare you for something great, for greatness. And that's the key. Again, like you said, it's not just about the punishment and the hurt and the pain of going through the discipline. It's what you're setting yourself up for on the other end, which is really, really cool. So what's, I guess not to try to steal anything away from Sunday, but what's a tangible way that a person could either start or grow in this particular area if they don't feel like they have that going on right now?
Well, let's just take reading, for instance, okay? And that we'll just home in on that one today. We're going to talk about a couple others too. But just thinking about reading, some people read because they love reading, and they could sit down and read a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could read a lot of scripture. But the problem is that, what will you take away from that?
Yeah.
My suggestion is for people, if you're an academic reader, you love to gain the knowledge and hear the story and all of that, then, be careful you don't digest all of this information and not stop long enough for the transformation part.
Yeah.
The actual part of that. So I like to go through just a simple regimen. I will read portions where there's a good beginning point and an ending point. And then I will stop there, go back, and try to observe things from it. That to me, that makes more sense. Observe the things that are a part of it.
For sure.
And then on top of just observing, then I try to say, okay, really, what was this about? The more observation you do, the less interpretation you have to do.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
it does make sense.
So I think too many times we do less observation and then
Just try to interpret.
yeah, I don't get this.
What do I
What's
make
this
of it?
about? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't understand this passage. But the more observation you do,
Yeah.
the better. And sometimes that means, okay, I might have to launch back and read a little bit more before this, and I might even have to go ahead and read after it some
Right.
to understand why that was said.
What
or
was
why it
really going on
Yeah,
at
exactly.
the time or whatever, some context there.
Yeah, because if you don't have the context, and I was always taught this, context without, or a text without a context is a pretext.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so you don't have all of the information you need to
Right.
really be able to interpret what it's really saying.
Yeah.
Once you get the observation interpretation down, then it's easy to then go in and apply it. You can find the transformation that should take place
Right.
in your own life of what you see there.
Right.
So it's easy too to read the Bible and go, boy, so-and-so needs to hear this. So-and-so needs to hear that. And honestly, as a pastor, I find myself in that trap all the time.
Sure.
I read it and go, boy, the people need to hear this one. And no, before I had to ever give it to anybody else, it better change my life first before
Right.
I share it with anybody.
Right.
And those are the times when God really uses it, grows my faith, and ends up growing other people's faith as a result.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're an academic reader, you do that. If you're not an academic reader, it's like, then don't feel like you've got to read chapters and all this stuff all at once.
Yeah.
You might find that this one verse just was powerful to you and what it stated. So don't think that it's quantity of what you're reading that's necessary. Like a reader who says, a person who doesn't like to read or has had a bad experience with reading in the past, or reading has been challenging for for different reasons. You take people who have a difficulty in reading.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, you're made in God's image, and God knows that about you, and He still loves you, and that does not make you a lesser Christian or a lesser person because of that.
Not at all.
And on top of it, there's no reason why you can't, even perhaps go to something like YouVersion and call it up and listen to it.
Let them read it to you.
Yeah. I mean, so.
I love that feature.
Oh, yeah. I mean, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
I will find myself doing that a lot when I'm out driving. I just, rather than listening to talk radio or all kinds of news or whatever it could be on the radio or any, even music, hearing that read to you, hearing the word read to you, can really be life-changing.
Yeah.
And life-giving. So that's what I would encourage. Don't feel like there's this standard that has to be met every time you sit down.
Yeah.
Because it's not the truth.
No.
You can do it in a lot of ways. If you're a big reader, then man, do it. Digest, dive in, dig into it. If you aren't, then find yourself in a way that you can hear and understand what it's saying and then be able to
take it in. Much of it as you can.
And this is where it dovetails with practical teaching too. Somebody, you hear somebody speak about it or talk about it or teach it, and then you go in and read those verses again and see what it really does for you.
Yeah. Wow. So cool. Thanks for watching this clip from the Think On It podcast. If you would like to hear this episode in its entirety, check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts, or just click on the link below to listen to the entire episode. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.